Today I'm going to be focusing on how we can keep the fizz, important word, with our clients and get the referrals and testimonials that our expertise deserves. So first of all, a myth buster, and this really infuriates me. I started my own software business about 5 years ago, fully self-funded, so I'm not backed by millions in venture capital funding. And the thing that really stood out for me when I was launching that business is that other software companies that have massive marketing budgets will try and describe their software as systems. But as you and I know, systems aren't software at all. That's a really misleading and misguiding phrase. It actually leads to kind of false hope and expectations as we implement a piece of software if we think of it as a system. What systems actually are grouped together processes. So for example, how we acquire new business, how we deliver the work, how we delight our clients. So for example, the meeting process, the acquisition process, how we go about having sales meetings booked with us, how we prepare ourselves and our prospect for those meetings, how we run those meetings when we're in there, how you follow up for those meetings, and how you make the offer to people. So that's one self-contained system grouping together connected processes in there. And as I promised, we'll delve into some 80s nostalgia on today's presentation. Who remembers the battle, the Coca-Cola wars, the battle between Coke and Pepsi? It was driven out by highly paid advertising executives on Madison Avenue, started in the US but continued around the world. Pepsi, who were the fire starters, the fire brands in that market, wanting to steal market share from the established player Coca-Cola, they were focused on taste. Coke had changed its recipe fairly misguidingly, and Pepsi was focused on taste, and they had the Pepsi challenge that you'd see if you went to various different events or theme parks or that kind of thing. Coke focused on tradition and togetherness. They wanted to teach the world to sing. Coke focused on that togetherness. They wanted to not only teach the world to sing, but buy the world a Coke. They wanted us to, share that experience with one another. What was our response in the UK to all this glitzy advertising? Well, it was Rola Cola, wasn't it? To use Peter Kay's joke about this. Actually, what happened was in the UK we're very anti the glitz and the glamour, and cost-conscious supermarkets introduced their own brands at the same time, and they were trying to differentiate their product from what was out there with Pepsi and Coke. They made bottles that were huge, thinking it was great value, but they were too large for our fridges. And of course, when we took the cap off, because they were huge bottles, we'd be taking them up, we couldn't drink them all in one go. The number of times you took the cap off, it would rapidly lose its fizz. And so other upstarts in the UK, the Boffins at Kenwood, who remembers this? The Boffins at Kenwood invented a product called the SodaStream, which was a real Heath Robinson contraption, wasn't it? Their slogan was getting busy with the fizzy. And it was a really sort of engaging tool. It was fairly rudimentary. It involved a gas bottle, these naff plastic bottles, and this really horrible, sticky, syrupy juice that you put in the bottom of the bottles. But it was really engaging, especially for kids and for families, to make these fizzy drinks. And it had huge market success in the UK. 4 out of every 10 homes in the 1980s had a SodaStream. So it wouldn't surprise me if you had one. We certainly had one in our house. But the important thing was this: although it was a fairly rudimentary tool, it kept the fizz better than the own brand pop. So people stopped buying in their droves the horrible Rola Cola, and it gave us a ready supply of fizzy cold drinks that we could put in the fridge. So what I want you to think about today is about being more SodaStream. How can we come up with an innovative way to solve a problem that we have in our expert businesses where time and momentum are challenges to how we work. The other hidden gem about these soda streams to my 8-year-old self was that if you over-carbonated the bottles, it made this horrible farting noise, which my younger sister and I absolutely loved. So we'd always try and over-carbonate it as we went. So your client relationships are very much like pop. And you have, over the course of that relationship with them, from them becoming a lead to the end of that relationship, you have this loss of fizz throughout the process. And we need this SodaStream style carbonation buzz. So endorsements satisfy some really human needs that we have. Endorsements fit the bill of those middle three needs that we have as people, right? It gives us that safety blanket. If we look here at the second need, they provide us with paid work and economic security. Then above that, they also give us, in the kind of love and belonging category, the testimonials and referrals really help us to build up this community of fans. And I haven't got a slide on it today, but I'd really encourage you to read an article. It's simple to Google, by a guy called Kevin Kelly, 1,000 True Fans. He talks about how we don't need millions and millions of fans to be a success. So have a look at that, 1,000 True Fans. And then towards the top there, in terms of self-esteem, referrals and endorsements, testimonials, they give us this real confidence, this sense of achievement that the work that we're doing, the service that we're providing to our clients is valued and valuable. So how do we systemize the process towards getting endorsement at the end of our work with a client? Well, it starts with having good framing and being consistent throughout that process. How often, for example, do you capture leads and go all gung-ho with our autoresponders to get them to take an action, but actually then leave them to drop off a cliff or lose the fizz from that relationship as soon as they've had a meeting with you or as soon as they have become clients? We need to avoid that inconsistency. So we need to demonstrate excellence throughout that entire life cycle, our marketing, our sales, how we deliver, and then how we delight our clients. I'm going to share with you, if I may, a quick story from a mentor of mine when I first started in business, a chap called Adam Wheatley, who was what I would describe as a methodical salesperson. And most of his work came through referrals, but whenever it didn't, and he had an appointment with a new prospect that was generated through perhaps telemarketing, he'd sit down with the client and say, "So, Mr. Client, as you'll appreciate, most of our introductions come through referrals, and I note that we're sitting here today outside of that path. So if I may just describe for you what success looks like for us in terms of working with you, we measure it in 3 ways. Are you delighted enough to give us more work? Are you delighted enough to give us a testimonial that we can share with others? Or are you delighted enough to give us a referral to people that have similar problems to you? If we deliver our work successfully together and you're really happy with the outcomes, do you think one or more of those goals are appropriate in terms of rewarding that success?" And of course the client would nod their head, they're buying into it. And it was a really good way of getting engagement right up front and framing the expected outcomes for him as a partner to that business of what was important in that relationship. So he thought of it as a partnership, working in partnership with the client. One of those 3 outcomes: do more work with us, offer warm referrals, give us a testimonial. He was promising at the very outset, at the very first meeting with this client, that in terms of working together, we'd keep the fizz in that relationship. He recognized he had a choice in who he and his team could work with. They had a finite amount of time, they had a finite amount of capacity and desire to work with different clients. And he was framing to that client in advance, or that prospective client in advance, that this was a partnership. And whilst there'd be really significant benefits for the client, he wanted the client to also recognise that there were benefits that could be achieved for them as well. So mutual beneficial outcomes. What this guy, Adam Wheatley, was able to do, describing at the outset what the outcomes would be, the number of success stories that he then had in terms of referrals or testimonials was off the charts by the end. He averaged 2 introductions by client, referral introductions by every client that he signed. And he signed up roughly 1 in 3 of everybody that he sat in front of. So his lead generation problem was largely resolved by this framing of the outcomes. But as experts, we have this competition problem, this perception anchoring that our target markets have, that our prospects have. You see, we actually anchor as consumers when we're considering a service ourselves. And that anchoring can be based on anything that we've had an experience of service-wise. To give you an example, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, we just assume that something that we order is going to be with us the very next day. Or if we're using Netflix, that we'll be able to access whatever film or TV show we want to watch on demand. And so we have this anchoring in our mind that every kind of service experience that we have will be as high quality as that experience. We're also living in a world where there is such abundant media. So people that we follow, people that we enjoy reading, authors, presenters, that kind of thing, you can probably find them on podcasts, on Audible, even on Netflix series, and they're very, very accessible to us. So we're competing with this really glossy picture of others. So this access to experts is always there. And the other thing, and this is a lockdown thing, where we work has very much changed over the last few years, hasn't it? So the device that we're accessing maybe these consumer services on is exactly the same device that we're reading service providers' offers on. It might be our laptop, it might even be on a 4K screen. So where we are making our decisions as business owners is not dissimilar to where we're consuming other media. We're also cursed by our expertise. We assume, with this curse of knowledge, that everybody understands our subject as well as we do. We also have a need to serve or even overserve people to solve their problems. And also, we have a tendency as technicians sometimes to just respond to narrow inquiries. I've got X problem, and so we respond to whatever X problem is instead of booking a call and expanding that problem to find out that actually there's X, Y, and Z that you can solve and build a bigger relationship around. So that's a service problem. So how do we counter this? I want to introduce to you the Lemonade plan. And Lemonade is an acronym. It's also my forthcoming book that's coming out. Lemonade plan covers the relationship from end to end, from getting leads, and it ends with endorsements at the end of the path. But we lose the fizz as experts through that process, don't we? So I promised 5 different email ideas. The first one is what we describe as the fast 5. The odds of contacting a lead more than 5 minutes after they've made an inquiry significantly drop off a cliff. This is research that MIT did. If we leave it 30 minutes before we get back to a lead, the likelihood of success of building that relationship further drops by 100 times. And even just between 5 and 10 minutes, the odds decrease by 5-fold. So here's the first email idea. The email response to an inquiry should be, let me know your biggest problem. I'll read the response, yeah? And if you feel that it's appropriate, invite them to book a call at that stage. Now, you might not do that in the first email if you want to nurture them a little bit and give them some more education. But if it's appropriate, you can invite them to book a call. The other thing as well is SMS. If you're able to, with the software that you have, start a 2-way SMS conversation, that's really engaging and really acted upon. Email idea number 2, at the other end of the spectrum, is to ask for the testimonial at the end of your relationship with them. Important there is making sure that you've found out, you've established during that process where that person is most likely to offer you that recommendation. Is it a Google review? Is it a recommendation on LinkedIn? Is it perhaps something for your website? Just form that judgment and only send that one link to the person to give you a review at the end of it, ideally with a direct link so that they can leave that review for you. And then there are some key sales processes in between, aren't there? There are the sales meetings, that's the M, and offers that you make. And it's really important that in these two stages of the process that you're able to continue to frame things in the right way. And email idea number 3 is in the pre-meeting. And I'm going to precursor this by saying what you shouldn't send. Step back before the meeting from problem fixing a specific query. But the email that you should send in the emails that you should send in the build up to that meeting, perhaps a countdown to the meeting, are frequently asked questions that people have that you can address prior to the meeting, or what I describe as the SAQs, the should ask questions. And as you move towards the meeting, the email that comes as a direct precursor to the meeting should be the most important one, because in all likelihood, the narrow window in advance of the meeting, it sort of narrows, doesn't it? Some people book only 2 days in advance, some might book the day before. So make sure that your most important question that you have goes out in that sequence just before it. Various software out there that can do a countdown towards a meeting, but think about the emails that you share with your prospects beforehand, which will increase the quality of what those meetings are. Email idea number 4 is the importance of following up from that meeting. It's been proven that getting your offer out of the door quickly after the meeting, maybe not directly afterwards, give it some time that they can just digest the thoughts, but certainly within 2 to 3 hours of the meeting, you should be sending an offer to somebody. And even if it's towards the end of the day, try and send the offer that you want to make to them out, because if they read it before they sleep, none of that kind of sleep doubt creeps into the equation. So really important that we act promptly and quickly and energetically after that meeting. Then we've got the education phase, the lead education phase. I'm not going to go into this because there's loads and loads of content on this that I could probably spend an entire talk on. But if you go to the Lemonade Plan YouTube channel, I've got a whole playlist on nurture marketing. And if you go to askgareth.com/YouTube, you can see that video on there. Which email communications should you automate is a really good one. Then we get to the worst culprits of letting that relationship fizz escape. It's how once somebody has bought, they've made that big commitment to you. Once they have bought, how do you continue that excitement with them? You've done all of those autoresponders in advance. You've built up that excitement at the meeting, but then how you welcome new clients into your world, don't let them drop off, because that's when buyer's doubt slips in. Similarly, how we offer add-ons, how we manage the delivery of that service so that they know that the service is being delivered well are important. And finally, the email idea number 5 is about that new client welcome. This might be a sequence, it might be one email. I find sequences work well, maybe a drip every single day for say a week after they become clients. Tone of which being, this is how clients succeed around here, so this is how you'll get success from working with us. How would they ask for help? Also, reminding them to not sit on problems. If you've got a problem, bring it up with me. And also, if your service is quite complex or they have to do lots of work themselves, give them an orientation call and give them an invitation to book a call with you. So that's the Lemonade Plan. Leads, education, meetings, making the offers, new clients, add-ons, delivery, and endorsements. And if you forget any one of those components, or it's not as consistent as the other, that's where the fizz disappears from our marketing. I'll finish with some quick final thoughts. Systemisation is not only about time saving. There's a real common thing online that Systemisation is all about saving time. Actually, for us small business owners, it's about building that experience with our leads and our clients and our past clients as well. It's about growing that perception that they have of you. You also don't need to be like McDonald's. McDonald's is probably the most famous systemizer of business. My friend David Jennings describes McDonald's as the elite athlete. He's written a book called Systemology, and he describes McDonald's as the unattainable goal for small businesses and to not position yourself like them, so you don't have to be McDonald's. Bear in mind also what Arthur Ashe said: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Really simple advice for starting with what you've got, and putting yourself in your client's shoes about what's important to them. Then we've also got the tech stack. There are three probably different pathways that you can go down in terms of managing the technology around systemizing your business. You could go down a manual approach, perhaps hire a VA or a PA to do everything in these engagements manually and agree what those processes and procedures should be. You can go down the Zapier route. It's a tool that links together thousands and thousands of online pieces of software. I find that ends up in something of a spaghetti approach to managing things, and because different services send things out in different ways, it can produce an inconsistent outcome for what your clients see. Or you can adopt a more kind of hub and spoke type software where you've got one core piece of software that manages your CRM, your email marketing, and what I would describe as micro automations, these short series of emails and communications, SMS communications, that kind of thing. That tends to be the approach that as we grow our expert businesses, or as we perhaps just have a couple of people in our team, that tends to be the best way of being able to manage things consistently. But if you've got questions on any of those, on any of the tech, visit askgareth.com and that'll link us up on LinkedIn. And if you've got questions on the tech, I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. So the final thought: be more SodaStream. Lots of positive, fizzy, extra shots of that carbonation through your relationship with your clients, keeping things consistent from end to end. Don't be something flat that nobody remembers fondly and then throws away. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. The book comes out this September. If you'd like a free copy, and I'll even throw in the delivery, just jump over to lemonadeplan.com. And once that's released, I'll stick that in the post to you, and I'd love to get your feedback on it.